Good evening to one and all present today. Welcome to VCM on Recent Development under GST with New Challenges Ahead, organized by Pune branch of WIRC of ICA. I welcome our today's speaker, CA Vaishali Kharde ma'am, and all our attendees attending today. Before we start, let me introduce our today's speaker to you. CA Vaishali ma'am has more than 6 years of post-qualification work experience in indirect taxes with Preetham Mahure and Associates. She has secured 24th rank, All India rank in CA exam. She's a leader of team of professionals and articles. Her role involves advising to leading Indian and multinational entities on GST and erstwhile service tax, excise, VAT, and UAE VAT. She has addressed more than 50 seminars for students and professionals on GST Act, e-way bill, budget, etc. She is the author of various books, namely GST Audit and Annual Return, Vivad Se Vishwas, Handbook on e-way bill, etc. Vaishali ma'am has actively contributed her technical inputs in service tax and GST books published by Bharat Publication, Delhi, and New Book Corporation, Mumbai. She is a regular writer of articles at various web portals like Tax on Guru, Tax Sutra, and etc. Vaishali ma'am has successfully represented tax issues before the tax authorities. So she is a very apt and a very eminent personality today present with us to address on this topic. I welcome you, Vaishali ma'am, once again, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Deepali ji, for such a nice introduction. So, first of all, thank you for inviting us as a speaker and to share the view on most critical topic of amendments from 1st January. So, shall we start the session?
Yes, ma'am, sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I think I will share the screen first. The screen is visible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
So good evening to all participants, first of all. Definitely whatever changes are applicable from 1st January 2020 are somehow critical and increasing the challenges from this, not only from CA or practitioner perspective, but more about from the taxpayer perspective. So मुझे लगता है कि सेशन के पहले ही मेरी तबीयत थोड़ी ठीक नहीं हुई, कल से I'm not feeling well. So I will try to explain whenever possible. Even in the morning, sir has said me to postpone the session. But I think after 2 days, और अगर तबीयत खराब हो गई तो सेशन ही नहीं होगा. So that's why, just joking, but that's why I said that no, we will continue with the session. And I will definitely try to address the session effectively. But whenever possible, I will recommend that participants should interact. Because whatever changes are applicable from 1st January 2021, definitely that are critical changes and having a more impact on the industries. So I would recommend that participants would interact with me. So first of all, 1st January. So sub, I think everyone, अभी मुझे पता नहीं. So we'll speak in Hindi, English, or only English. So I will be speaking in both the language. If there is any language barrier, please let us know. So you can type in the chat box. So I think on 1st January, God grace, CA never be at party क्योंकि 31st को due date थी. So, but for 1st January, everyone celebrating the Happy New Year. But as far as GST is concerned, whether it's a Happy New Year for us, so for coming year, so definitely not. At the end of session, you will get how much it's happy. So for us, It's something increasing the challenges under GST again. If we see the amendment, तो आप अगर amendment देखोगे GST law के अंदर, तो we can bifurcate the all amendments of the 1st January into 3 parts. Which are the 3 parts? First of all, the law itself, definitely whatever the amendments in the law are discussed in the budget 21 itself. तो budget 21 में ही propose किए गए थे, उसके बाद finance act में वो introduce किए, but notify वो हुए कब से? So it's notified from the 1st January 2022. So it's notified, and thus we are going to take the law related amendments. Second, स्ट्रेंथनिंग द कंप्लायंस. तो कुछ कंप्लायंस है जो और स्ट्रेंथन किए गए हुए, उसके वजह से डिफिकल्टी मोर अबाउट, आई थिंक द प्रैक्टिशनर हैज इंक्रीज्ड द डिफिकल्टी इंस्टेड ऑफ टैक्स पेयर. तो हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गई है एज अ प्रैक्टिशनर. so some compliance is strengthening, so it's more about like GSTR1, GSTR7, so we'll discuss that also. And third major change is related to GST rate. So GST rate, I will say that increased for some sectors and that have a major impact. So abhi iske pehle bhi increase हुए थे क्या? Definitely, even from 2017 जब से GST law आया है, तब from that day we had seen the very much changes in the GST rate. But these changes are something like that industry is affecting more. And why we were discuss that also. So whatever the changes we had, we can divide into 3 parts of this so that to understand. अगर हम देखेंगे today's session, if we talk about the today's session, then our session is going to divide into 2 parts. First, we will discuss all the law related changes and that are critical to every taxpayer. Most of the changes है जो every taxpayer industry, I will say that the industry specific changes कुछ है, but these are the changes which are applicable to every taxpayer, and thus we will focus first the changes related to law, and then we will focus the other changes that is related to rules, etc. So first of all, let's start from the law related changes. अगर हम law related changes again we classify, so it can be classified into 3 parts. मतलब कौन से changes है? First of all, scope of supply. So everyone knows that the supply is widely defined at the time of, so it's not defined, I can say they had given the scope of supply. So it's not at all defined. They had not given the meaning of supply, but they had given the scope of supply, and it's now more wider from 1st January. Second change is related to input tax credit. So बहुत सारे input tax credit के changes हमने देखे हैं from the day GST law was introduced, but now it's more about the change in the act. Then third change is recovery. Abhi whatever the participants, so more about all the CS, and everyone knows the attachment of bank account. So more तो जो हम attachment of bank account face कर रहे थे अभी, so वो आपको हमें लग रहा था कि कभी भी attach करते, तो this power has increased, and we'll discuss about that also, and even we'll discuss about the way forward also. Then fourth change is regarding the e-way bill. Regarding e-way bill, 4 sections are changed. Section 74, section 129, section 130, 17. And fifth change is power to collect the statics. So government power to collect the information from the taxpayer or any other person. So these are the 5 impacts. So one impact is related to scope of supply, ITC, recovery, and fourth is e-way bill, and then power. So we can divide the law related changes into 5 parts. Or you can say impact. So whenever possible, whenever we are discussing change, so everyone is discussing change, but no one is discussing way forward. But in this session, we will try to discuss way forward also whenever possible. तो आपको क्या solution हो सकता है ये change? Definitely litigation होगा क्या? Yes, the litigation is going to increase drastically. But to mitigate the risk of litigation or to reduce the litigation, what are the way forward and what can be the solution? Definitely, along with the challenges, we are going to discuss that also for each and every part whenever possible. So I think this is one of the new for this session, and we are going to discuss because as per our view, all are the CAs and CAs are looking for the solution and not for the challenges. And thus, whenever possible, we will discuss. Even the other participant, if they think that this solution is workable, you definitely free to share with us that solution. So, first of all, amendment in section 7, scope of supply. So क्या amendment है? So I think most of the person may had know the amendment, but we will discuss the amendment so that we will get the challenges of that amendment. So in the section 7, that is the which gives the scope of the supply, the clause AA, after the clause A added, and what is the purpose for addition? तो क्या पर्पस था कि ये क्लॉज ऐड कर दिया? तो आपको पता रहेगा कि पहले कलकत्ता क्लब का जो डिसीजन था, सो कलकत्ता क्लब डिसीजन इज अंडर द प्री जीएसटी regime, that is service tax regime, where the apex court said that the association, that is the society and the members are one and the same person and hence the service tax is not leviable. तो 15 साल से जो लिटिगेशन चल रहा था वो कहीं तो अपेक्स कोर्ट ने उसे स्टॉप करके एक डिसीजन दिया था, एंड अकॉर्डिंगली दिस पर्सन्स आर नॉट टैक्सेबल. बट the section 7, a new clause introduced, and that is also retrospectively. So this clause has an impact from 1st July 2017. तो जब से GST law है तब से इसका impact होगा. It's amended retrospectively. So what is amendment? They had amended, introduced or added the clause AA to say that the activities or the transaction by a person other than an individual to its members or constituent or vice versa for for cash or deferred payment or other valuable consideration. So all the activities or transaction by a person to other than the individual. And again, explanation said that for this purpose of clause, that means for the purpose of the clause AA, it is hereby clarified that notwithstanding anything contained in the law for the time being in force or any judgment, that means that started with the notwithstanding and say that the any judgment that to overrule the Supreme Court's or apex court judgment or the in the service tax regime. So that's why they had worded like that. Or decree or tribunal authority, the person and its members or the constituent shall be deemed to be separate person. That means for the purpose of the clause, the person or and its members or the constituent shall be deemed to be the separate person. So accordingly, we can say that now the society and the members are the separate person as per this clause and liable to be taxed. Now, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने लिटिगेशन स्टॉप किया था, वी कैन से दैट दे हैड कंक्लूडेड द concept of mutuality with the concept of mutuality, the litigation which is going with respect to society and the members, but now it's again started and everyone is of the view whether that can be litigated or not. So definitely one of the major impact, if it is started from now or taxable from now, it's not having a more impact, but the many of the societies or association we had seen took the decision not to pay tax on the basis of that apex court decision. So all that are societies are liable to pay the GST from the 1st July. So from it's amended retrospectively. So what are the challenges? So some of the challenges we had discussed कि ये retrospective amendment है, तो impact retrospective होगा. Retrospectively 1st July tax payable है, so you have to pay the tax. Now let's say about what are the solution. So पहले first of all, whether I can avail the ITC of previous period if I had considered the service as an exempted. So friends, first of all, for availment of the past period ITC, definitely on capital goods, etc., we can avail the ITC if we are paying the liability. But again, this will lead to litigation. Second, whether interest on the past liability is payable. So there are many apex court decisions wherein it is said that if we create the or any amendment in the law creates the liability for the past period, then interest will not be payable. But definitely there is no any provision in hand at now, and hence if you are not paying the interest, you have to be ready for the litigation purpose. So they're going to litigate. Second, if we see the this amendment is applicable to any person. That means this amendment could impact even the partnership firm. तो आपको पता है कि हर एक में पार्टनरशिप फर्म में रेम्युनरेशन शेयर होता है. So whether this will have an implication to that, so to that extent it could have an implementation, so implications on the GST liability, because this is widely worded, so it does not only cover the society and members. Even in our view, it could get cover the partnership, and they have to litigate in future. Second, whether we can pay the liability under protest. So definitely, friends, now also we can change the challenge the constitutional validity. First of all, whether it is say whether the judgment can be overruled. So definitely judgment can be overruled if there is an apex court judgment that can be overruled as per some as per change in the amendment or the act. But the previous period liability can be litigated now also, because we had took the decision based on the apex court decision, and we can pay under the protest and can be litigated. So I think these are the certain solution with us for the previous period, and going forward, it is recommended in our view to pay the liability, to take the credit and pay the liability. So I think this is the first amendment with respect to scope of supply. Second amendment, and this amendment is applicable to and impacted to every sector. That means each and every taxpayer, that is from small taxpayer to large taxpayer, and this is related to input tax credit. मुझे लगता है कि बहुत जनों को ये amendment पता भी रहेगा, but we'll discuss thoroughly, including as discuss the pay forward. So what is the amendment? So everyone aware about the, if we have to avail the ITC as per section 16(2), earlier we have to satisfy the 4 conditions. And वो 4 conditions क्या थे? Possession of the tax invoice. Second, goods and services should be received. GST should be paid to the government by vendor. And third is furnish the return. So here should have to furnish the return. So what is the new condition? So new condition by introducing clause AA. So clause A added about, and this clause A says that the details of invoice debit note has been furnished by the supplier in GSTR1 and it should be communicated. So ये जो new condition है वो add की गई है. So we'll read about the new condition. What it says. So new condition, it says that the as per section 16, clause AA inserted, which says that the details of invoice or a debit note referred to in clause A. Clause A is about the tax invoice. So details of that invoice or the debit note. So whatever document issued, either tax invoice or debit note, referred in clause A has been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supply. That means it should be furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supply, means GSTR1, and the details have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note in the manner specified under section 37. It should be communicated in the manner specified. मतलब उसको GSTR1 में वो बताना है, और it should be communicated to the recipient in the manner specified. अभी manner specify क्या है? So GSTR2A can be the valid manner or GSTR2B can be the valid manner. Anyone can say which one the valid manner for communication? So give your answers in the chat box. So if we see the meanwhile we'll discuss about the previous period amendment. So Rahul ji is saying 2A. Aniruddha ji is saying 2B. So what is the valid manner for the 2A or 2B communicating? Varun ji is saying 2B. Akshay ji is saying 2B. So some are say we can say that some of saying the 2A, some of saying the 2B. So we'll see valid manner. Before that, we will check about the what are the path towards the amendment. मतलब amendment कैसे हुए? तो फर्स्ट अमेंडमेंट हुई थी वो अक्टूबर 2019 में हुई थी एंड रूल 36(4) वाज अमेंडेड. और रूल 36(4) अमेंड करके क्या किया था उन्होंने? 20% only credit allowed on the provisional basis. That means 20% of the 20% of the eligible credit with respect to invoices which are not uploaded is allowed as per October 2019 amendment. The first of all rule was amended in the month of October 2019. उसके बाद जनवरी 20 में उन्होंने वो 20% जो अवेलेबिलिटी थी वो 10% कर दी. सबको पता है. उसके बाद ये 10% अवेलेबिलिटी उन्होंने रिड्यूस कर दी अगेन जनवरी. तो ये कब किया था 10%? जनवरी 20 में. जनवरी 21 में उन्होंने अगेन वो 10% रिड्यूस टू 5%. एंड नाउ in January 2022, one can say now the credit is not available unless and until it is furnished by our recipient, furnished by our supplier in the GSTR1 and communicated to the recipient. Now, what is the way of communication? So this is the question about the what is the way about the communication. So they are saying that it should be communicated in the manner prescribed. So I think two of the participants has raised the hand. Meanwhile, I think you can write in the chat box if any query. We'll take at the end. So we'll discuss at the end. Okay, okay, Vinaji. So I think first, so we had discussed about the now what is the valid way, whether it is 2A or 2B. So if we see, it's in the section it says that in the manner specified, and that manner is specified under Rule 36(4), and Rule 34(6)(4) has amended via notification 40/2021, and that amendment is. It says that the no input tax credit shall be availed by the registered person in respect of invoices or debit notes, or the details of which are required to be furnished under section 37(1). The details of such invoices, so unless, so there are two conditions is required to be satisfied as per this rule. First is unless the details of such invoices or debit note and has been furnished by the supplier in the outward supply of GSTR1. That means it should be in the GSTR1 of the supplier. And second, they are saying that communicated to the registered person in the form 2B. That means now you don't have to refer to 2A for the purpose of the matching, but reference should be the 2B. Unless and until it is reflected in the 2B, the credit can't be allowed. It can be said by way of this rule. Matlab, one can say that you have to refer the 2B only. Now the question arises, what is the use of 2A? So 2A is valid or not? Can anyone say? कि 2A अभी रेफर ही नहीं करेंगे हम. Section 37 has not been changed. Rahul ji is saying there is a still 2A and 2B as per section. Correct, Rahul ji? But where we have to refer the 2A? Whether we can refer it for the matching? So friends, रूल 36(4) में तो उन्होंने बोल दिया कि आपको सिर्फ 2B रेफर करना है फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ मैचिंग. सो व्हेनेवर यू आर अवेलिंग द ITC, यू हैव टू रेफर द 2B ओनली. बट उन्होंने रिफंड, जो भी रिफंड क्लेम है, आप अगर रिफंड क्लेम कर रहे हैं तो उसके लिए जो सर्कुलर इशू किया था, दैट 2A इज कांस्टेंट. तो वहां पे आपको 2A के डिटेल्स देने. सो एवरीवेयर देयर इज अ कॉन्ट्राडिक्शन. So one where for the reconciliation you are referring the 2B, but in the circular they had not changed and they had saying that for the refund you should refer the 2A. तो वहां पे आपको 2A रेफर करना है. So second, this is one of the challenge. Second, क्लॉज ए, आप अगर क्लॉज ए रीड करोगे तो इट सेज अबाउट द इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट. दैट मीन्स द इनवॉइस और डेबिट नोट, इफ it is getting reflected in the to be, or then only it's applicable. Then what about the other credits like RCM? That means ITC, whether RCM ITC, तो आप जो रिवर्स चार्ज में GST पे करने वाले उसका ITC अवेलेबल है या नहीं. Second, what about the bill of entry on import of goods or import of services on which we are going to pay under RCM? So these are the questions. So whether this credit is available, anyone? Because this section says that the invoice or debit note. Invoice means the tax invoice. So tax invoice and debit note, if it is reflected in 2B, that is uploaded by in the GSTR1 by the supplier and reflected in the 2B, then only available. Then what about other credits like RCM, etc.? So Rahul is saying that these credits are available because it says about the invoice and debit note. So regarding bill of entry, I think even though it's not reflected in the 2B, the credit should be available to the recipient. RCM, this provision not applicable, and hence it's available on the basis of the payment, but it can be on other way also. So litigation could happen because even for 17, 18, 18, 19, we are suffering with the litigation for the genuine credit. So कुछ credit है जो bill of entry के है, that is not reflected in the 2A and 2B, and because of that we are suffering from the notices. So there could be the possibility of the litigation also because of this. No transitional provision prescribed for shifting the 2A to 2B. So whatever the provision drafted, they had amended the rule 36(4), but there is no any transitional provision. Because as on the date, so as on the December, I think many of the referring 2A instead of 2B, because 2A real time पे update हो जाता है, 2B monthly updated है. So many of us are referring to A, and there is no any transitional provision they had given for shifting into 2A to 2B. तो आपको reconcile कब से करना है? एक तो कभी भी हम जब देखते हैं तो जो भी चेंज होता है वो फाइनेंशियल ईयर, I think it is recommended to change from the April because we close the financial year March, and then transition of the change becomes the easy. But now what happened? The change has made in the month of the January, and hence the reconciliation could be difficult. If you had reconciled on the basis of 2A, then you have to consider the spillover transaction. So the reconciliation I can see in such a cases a bit difficult. Third challenge is, as Rahul ji correctly said, that section 38 and 39 are still there. मतलब क्या? Section 38 में बोला हुआ है कि matching. That means if there is any mismatch, we have to, there is a right for us to know in the 2B, and we can have also right to amend that 2B. So the whatever the concept of the return, that GSTR1 2A और उसके बाद GSTR2 and again 1A generate होगा and then 3B file करना है, that is still there, and hence the right of matching should be available to the recipient, which is now at present is can be said that it is not available because if it is reflected in the 2B, then only you can avail the credit. So these are the certain challenges. Another challenge is, as we said, that the numerous reconciliation is definitely there, but whether that credit or the after due date, let's say your supplier has filed the GSTR return after due date. So we'll see one example. तो हम एक example के साथ देखते हैं कि let's say जनवरी मंथ का जो GSTR1 है वो फरवरी 11 को फाइल करने की जगह पे उन्होंने 12 किया. अभी जो भी 2B अपडेट होता है वो कब अपडेट होता है? 14th of the February. मतलब जनवरी मंथ का जो भी क्रेडिट है वो लास्ट डेट ऑफ अपडेटिंग ऑफ द 2B इज द 14th of the February. तो 14th of the February को 2B अपडेट हो जाएगा और दैट विल बी स्टॉप. मतलब 15 से 2B अपडेशन नहीं होगा. बट अगर मेरे सप्लायर ने लेट्स से 11th of February की जगह पे 12th of February को रिटर्न फाइल किया, तो मेरा जो जनवरी का क्रेडिट है वो मैं जनवरी के रिटर्न में नहीं ले पाऊंगी, दैट विल गेट शिफ्टेड टू इन द मंथ ऑफ द फेब्रुआरी, क्योंकि उन्होंने ड्यू डेट के बाद फाइल किया. सो वट एवर द क्रेडिट or whatever the right which can I am having, that I can avail the credit in the month of the January, that will get shifted into February. So it's more critical that your supplier should file the returns before the due date. So communicate to your supplier that they should file the return before due date, else the working capital could stuck off. The working capital impact is more because of this provision. Now certain challenges could be there. तो आपने maybe जुलाई 2017 में GST law introduce हुआ, तब से system challenges हमने देखे हैं. There are more invoices. अभी commercially ऐसे होता है कि वो बोलते हैं कि upload किया, they will say the send also GSTR1 copy जिसपे वो invoice uploaded रहता है, but वो 2A में reflect नहीं होता है. So there are certain system glitches also, but that is not addressed in this provision. So there could be the possibility that it is not reflected in the 2B. Due to system glitches. So this can be the possibility. Second, what is if there is an inadvertent error in GSTR1? मतलब let's say आपका 1 लाख का your invoices of 1 lakh and whatever the GST credit available is 18,000. But instead of 18,000, they had filed a GSTR1 inadvertently with the 1,80,000. Now the credit in the 2B is 1,80,000. So cross also can be there. Your credit is 1,80,000, but GSTR1 is wrongly filed by the taxpayer or the supplier with 18,000. So both scenario could be there. If first scenario is there, then if you avail the less credit, then you may avail that there is no problem as far as the department is concerned. But if you avail the excess credit, what happened? So that means what if the inadvertent error? So instead of 1,80,000, the supplier has given the credit of 18,000 and wrongly disclosed the credit 18,000 only, and you had availed the 1,80,000, which is correct actually, but because of supplier mistake, there is a mismatch. So friends, again, there is a consequences because of this, and notice you could get a notice because of this genuine reason, and you have to suffer because of this. So there are numerous such possibilities in days to come. Second, what if the invoice is uploaded after the last date of availment of the ITC? We'll take one more example for this challenge. We know that whatever credit, what is the last date for availment? For 21-22, we can avail the credit up to September 22. So let's say there are small taxpayers. So everyone knows that there are some the small taxpayer file the return or whatever the reconciliation, even though accounting they start after the March. तो जो भी स्मॉल टैक्स पेयर है वो क्या कर देते कि मार्च के बाद जो भी अकाउंटिंग है वो स्टार्ट कर देते, and up to September they will finalize and they will upload the GSTR1. So whatever the credit of 2021, you have to reconcile in the month of the September itself, क्योंकि वो अगर सितंबर में अपलोड करेंगे तो आपको डायरेक्टली सितंबर में, तो you have only 1 month as far as this 2021 is 22 concerned. If it is not reflected in the 2B, you have 1 month only in the up to the September month. In the September month, you have to reconcile all the details and you have to avail the credit. पहले क्या चेंज था, पहले हम अवेल कर सकते थे बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट के with the books of accounts if it is matching and on the provisional basis, and afterwards if it is reflected into a we can reconcile. But now unless and until it is reflected in the 2B, you can't reconcile. So reconciliation could not be earlier. Reconciliation you can say postponed because of this. So September month is critical for everyone to avail the credit. Can now ITC not been uploaded by the vendor can avail the credit under the law? So second question, let's say कि ITC मेरे वेंडर ने कभी अपलोड ही नहीं किया, तो आप क्रेडिट अवेल कर सकते हो क्या? So what is your way? अगर 2B उन्होंने कभी अपलोड ही नहीं किया तो आप लिटिगेट कर पाओगे क्या? Some are saying yes. So definitely, first of all, we recommend that don't go for the litigation. Follow up with the supplier. We'll see what is the solution with you to mitigate the risk of litigation. But if any company having a sufficient credit and he want to litigate, or the company want to litigate because he don't want to suffer because of the vendors negligence, or one can say vendors non-compliance, then definitely litigation, or definitely that company can go for the litigation, or that taxpayer can go for litigation. And what are the favorable points with you? तो सबको पता ही है कि ये चेंज के पहले जो फेवरेबल पॉइंट्स थे वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल वैलिडिटी हम चैलेंज कर सकते थे, बट व्हाट अबाउट आफ्टर दिस चेंज? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल फेवरेबल पॉइंट, इफ वी सी कि वी आर नॉट द पर्सन who should be the responsible for the vendor's compliance. So definitely I have to do the business with the correct vendor, to select the vendor. But after carrying on all the care, और जब भी vendor select किया तो ये सब care करने के बाद भी अगर vendor non compliant है, so I am not the person who should be the responsible for the vendor's non compliance. Second, department hasn't much power to go to the vendor and to recover the liability from to go to the supplier and recover the liability from that supplier who had not paid. क्योंकि मैंने तो मेरे 18% जो भी गवर्नमेंट है मैंने उसको दे दिए, तो उसने वो टैक्स गवर्नमेंट को भरा नहीं है, तो डिपार्टमेंट हैज ए पावर टू कलेक्ट फ्रॉम दैट पर्सन एंड नॉट फ्रॉम मी. सो डेफिनेटली हैज ए पावर. अगर डिपार्टमेंट के पास पावर है तो भी डिपार्टमेंट अगर कलेक्ट नहीं कर पा रहा है, तो हाउ वी कैन कलेक्ट फ्रॉम द दैट पर्सन इफ ही इज नॉट पेइंग टू द गवर्नमेंट. सेकंड, इवन इन जीएसटी काउंसिल मीटिंग इफ यू रेफर, it is said that I think para 18 and 27 GST council meeting, it said that the department authorities should first of all try to recover the whatever the tax from the supplier and not from the recipient. So he should try to collect. If he is not available, his GST registration cancelled, then only it's on the he can collect, or department can collect from the recipient. Third, if you see, the provision or revised provision is applicable only invoice and debit note. It is not applicable to all other documents. That means one can say bill of entry, it's not applicable. So how can be the two procedure or two different procedure for availment of the credit? So this can be one of the contention. So I'm just sharing some of the contention with which we can still litigate this position of to be reflection. But definitely this has to be tested in the court of the law. So these are the certain contention as far as law is concerned. And even if we see the law, drafting of the law, section 16.4 they had changed, but section 16.2 they had changed, but section 16.2 is gives the eligibility. मतलब क्या है कि अगर they earlier 4 condition and now 5 condition we can say. So I can avail the, so I am the entitled the credit once section 16.1 satisfied. That means if it is for the business, I am entitled to the credit and eligibility can be subsequently tracked. मतलब my condition subsequently can be followed. But I think this condition whatever to be is now for the entitlement itself. That means this is not allowing to avail the credit itself unless and until it is reflected in the GSTR 2B. So this is also one of the contentions. Second, 37, 38. So section 38 is also there. So even GST law, if we refer the 3 sections, that means section 16, section 37, 38 and 39, 4th section, then this section conflict with each other. So there is no clarity in the GST law itself. So on this are certain the contention. So there are some contention with which one can take a view to litigate. So definitely, but if system bar the, so there could be the system changes also. So आज के डेट में अगर देखेंगे हम तो GST law से system ही पहले restrict कर देते हैं. So system is one can say the over and above the GST law. तो अगर सिस्टम ने ही रेस्ट्रिक्ट कर दिया तो अलग बात है, बट अगर सिस्टम रेस्ट्रिक्ट नहीं कर रहे, द पॉसिबिलिटी विल बी लो दैट सिस्टम विल रेस्ट्रिक्ट इन द गोइंग फॉरवर्ड, बिकॉज बिल ऑफ एंट्री का ऐसा क्रेडिट है जो आपको लेना है, उसके बाद आपके आरसीएम के क्रेडिट लेने, तो देयर इज अ कम पॉसिबिलिटी कि टू बी, बट if you intend to avail the more credit or whatever in the books of accounts and you can mitigate. Second, I think these are the there are certain other challenges also, miscellaneous challenges one can say. We had seen that there are inadvertent error by the supplier also. मतलब क्या हो जाता, हमारा GST मतलब put करने के जगह पे he had disclosed the other GST and everyone aware that the whatever the GSTR one we can amend once only. The second we can amend twice we can't amend. तो एक बार अगर आपने GSTR 1 वो मंथ का अमेंड कर दिया तो आप फिर से अमेंड नहीं कर सकते उसको, तो दैट्स व्हाई मोर केयरफुली disclosure in the GSTR 1 is more critical. If there is an any inadvertent error, it is more critical to amend that error. So we had discussed all challenges. Now we will discuss about the way forward, or one can say solution. What is the solution with us? So friends, first of all, we had seen we can go for the litigation, we can avail the credit, we don't care about that and go for the litigation. But again, I'm saying this is required to be tested in the court of the law, and it is again involve the cost of litigation, and hence it is recommended to avail the credit on the basis of 2B. And what is the solution for that? Now the solution, I think this is with the taxpayer only. So CA or as a consultant, whether we can do anything? Definitely not. The internal control system or SOP within the company or within the taxpayer premises will only help now going forward to mitigate the risk. So there is no other solution. So for your, if you are a consultant, you should give to your taxpayer or the client that build the internal control system or SOP like such that you should avoid the litigation related to input tax credit. तो हमने एक दो कंपनी में इंटरनल कंट्रोल सिस्टम और SOP बिल्ड किए हुए हैं, तो जब हमने वो बिल्ड की तो हमें कुछ फॉल्स और कुछ वी कैन शेयर द एक्सपीरियंसेस अबाउट दैट. तो आप अगर आपको क्लाइंट को शेयर करना है तो यू कैन शेयर, बट आई एम sharing about the experience which we had got during that when we are scheduling or implementing the internal control system. तो जब हमने वो internal control system कंपनी में implement किया, तब जो experience हमने किए और जो experience हमें हुए, that we were going to share. First of all, we can divide the internal control system into 5 steps. First of all, identify vendor. तो जब आपके जो भी कंपनी के वेंडर होते हैं ना, that will be the 80-20 apply the 80-20 rule, because majority of vendor they know. So there could be more 4 or 10 vendors which if we track that vendor 80% of the input tax credit get covered. तो ऐसे हो सकता है अगर वो 4 या 10 वेंडर आप ट्रैक करोगे तो आपका 80% जो इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट है दैट विल गेट कवर. So you can apply the 80-20 rule. First of all, whenever you are setting up internal control system within the organization, the vendor bifurcation is very necessary. So ask your client to bifurcate the vendor into the 5 categories. That means vendor with the e-invoicing, vendor with the tax invoice. So whenever there is a e-invoice vendor, there is no much need to क्योंकि उनको जब goods क्योंकि whenever they intend to supply the goods or services, they have to generate the e-invoicing. So e-invoicing जब भी वो generate कर देते हैं, so automatically that will get reflected into, if there is a goods transportation of the goods into e-way bill, from e-way bill to they get reflected into 2A of that recipient. So there is the internal control system, it in case could be big, it is possible, but that not required to be much tracked. Then vendor with the tax invoice. So definitely the vendor who is not applicable or to whom e-invoicing is not applicable, that required to be tracked separately. उसके बाद कुछ वेंडर होंगे जिन्होंने QRMP स्कीम अप्लाई की हुई है. So if your vendor has applied for the QRMP scheme, ask your vendor or request your vendor to upload that invoice under the IFF facility. So they have a IFF facility that can be used to upload the invoice. Else your credit gets shifted into the quarterly return. Second, vendor with composition scheme. So definitely there are certain vendor with composition, but credit is not available. So such vendor can be the outside purview of internal control system. There will be some unregistered vendor. Second, whenever the vendor has opted for quarterly, it is recommended to communicate with the vendor that you should opt for the monthly. So request the vendor to opt for the monthly. It will be the better, so that credit will not get shifted into the quarterly. So these are the first step, I think, to identify vendor and list down the vendor. Again, we had seen that the many of vendors are not regular filer. एंड अभी तो ऐसे हो जाता कि आपने अगर पहले तो यानी बिफोर 1 जनवरी 2021 अगर आपने 2 मंथ के रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किए तो वेंडर देयर कुड बी द कैंसिलेशन ऑफ द रजिस्ट्रेशन and hence GST registrations can be tracked, or the status can be tracked weekly or bi-weekly. You can recommend your client to track the GST registration system bi-weekly or weekly. According to the again company size, you can implement the internal control system. Second, अगर आप देखोगे कोई भी बैंक में जाओगे तो आपको KYC कंपल्सरी है. Even if you go for the any seminar or any hotel, there is a compulsory KYC. So like that only, for the purpose of vendor also, you can implement that the KYC should be compulsory. So whenever there is any vendor onboarding, KYC should be compulsory, which will help you to prove if you intend to litigate, let's say, even that will help that you had take all care to at the time of vendor onboarding itself. So vendor onboarding itself have a SOP that will help during the vendor onboarding. Which document you require, like GST registration you can take, return filing status you can take from the vendor before the vendor onboarding. Second, follow up with the vendor with the 2A. Why 2A? Everyone aware about there are 2A and 2B. As far as 2A is concerned, that is real-time amendment in the or updated 2A, and 2B get updated monthly. As I said earlier, discussed that the 2B is updated on the 14th of the next month. Second, if we see the second difference of 2A and 2B, that 2B 2A we have in real time. That means अगर आपका let's say December month का let's say December month दिसंबर मंथ का जो रिटर्न है वो लेट से फरवरी में फाइल किया तो फरवरी मंथ का 2B अपडेट होगा बट 2A दिसंबर मंथ का अपडेट होगा तो रियल टाइम पे आपको पता चलेगा तो इन फरवरी मंथ इटसेल्फ यू गेट द दैट दीज आर द इनवॉइसेस व्हिच आर नॉट अपलोडेड सो वेंडर फॉलोअप जो है वो आप 2A के बेसिस पे ले सकते हैं क्योंकि इवन दो विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू ई इनवॉइसिंग वंस ई इनवॉइसिंग जनरेटेड 2A गेट अपडेटेड तो एटलीस्ट 2A अपडेट हुआ तो वो वेंडर का फॉलोअप लेना नहीं है दैट वी यू विल गेट एंड वेंडर फॉलोअप कैन बी ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ 2A. Definitely again I am saying credit is available on the basis of 2B. Credit for the purpose of availability of credit you have to refer 2B only and not the 2A. It's generally only for the internal control system and to follow with the vendor. So I think this is the certain points with respect to internal control system. But while designing the internal control system, we have seen that the why reconciliation is difficult. So definitely 2A and 3B reconciliation is very, or now we can say 2B and 3B reconciliation is one of the difficult task. And why it is difficult? पहले तो आप system reconciliation पे don't completely rely on the system reconciliation because many times what happen entries are not proper. Second, reconciliation is difficult because of posting date could get shifted. मतलब आप अगर देखोगे तो posting date many times get delayed. So date of invoice is different, date of posting is different, and because of that also the reconciliation would be difficult in many scenarios. Second, we had seen vendors masters are not updated. So first update your vendor master. तो बहुत बार क्या हो जाता है कि vendor onboarding जो है वो add किए नहीं जाते. Second, if we are having a vendor with the Maharashtra state registration and he took the other registration of Gujarat and he issued the invoice from the Gujarat, or we had supplied the Gujarat, that entry gets shifted to the Maharashtra. So that could happen. So vendor master updation is very much necessary if you intend to reconcile correctly. Second, GST and masters. As I said that the many times one vendor has the 2 or 3 GST numbers. So whenever there is an entry in the books of an account, be careful with which GST we had deal with. So these are the certain points which we should have to take care about regarding the internal control system. So we are not having any other solution rather than you are having a proper SOP and internal control system to mitigate the risk of litigation and also to mitigate the working capital crunch. So it happened that if in 2B it gets shifted, there could be the working capital requirement in this month, and in the next month there could be the ITC excess. So if you have to avoid this, you have to have an internal control system. Second, many of the companies are using the customized AI-based tool for the reconciliation. So as I said, don't completely rely on the system reconciliation. First, you have to update your vendor master, etc. correctly. Then only system reconciliation will help you. Else it is very difficult that the system will help you in this reconciliation. So these are the some of the challenges, and even we had discussed some solution. Even the participant can share some solution with us if you are having, but this is the solution with us, whatever we had discussed. So at the end of the session, we'll have an interaction about this also. So I think the Rahulji is saying that all these points have been litigated in the VAT. So Rahulji, even VAT and GST, if we compare, in the MVAT, Maharashtra VAT Act, there is a system. So reconciliation कब होता था? We are having a sufficient year to reconcile the data. तो एक 3-4 साल के बाद वो जो भी थे वो J1 J2 mismatch आते थे. Second, if we see the difference between, they had given a proper system to communicate with the vendor and to correct the errors, which is not in place of the GST. I can say whenever we had litigated the VAT, we were against the whatever the provision of the J1 J2 as a consultant earlier, but whatever in the GST regime, that is worse than the MVAT. तो एटलीस्ट एमवैट में आप देखोगे तो आपके पास कुछ सॉल्यूशन थे, दैट सॉल्यूशन इज आल्सो नॉट इन द जीएसटी. तो एमवैट में एक प्रोसीजर दिया था, दैट प्रोसीजर इज आल्सो इफ यू आर इम्प्लीमेंटिंग सेक्शन or you are restricting the rights of the taxpayer, so definitely you can restrict, but with certain procedure which is not at all, even whatever the procedure that they had given is not and never been implemented. And said you can differentiate MVAT from the GST very well. So we can have a discussion more about this, but we'll have at the end of the session. Now section 75. Section 75, if we see, there is an amendment in the section 75, and section 75 is saying that the recovery in case of the GSTR1 and 3B difference as a self-assessment tax, and what is the impact of this. So first of all, we'll see what is the change, and then we'll see the what is the so I think everyone has know the notice of ASMT 10. So everyone has suffered from the ASMT 10. So I don't think that there is any person here which don't know ASMT 10. तो सबको GSTR 3B और 2A का डिफरेंस, GSTR 1 और 3B का डिफरेंस ये सफर कर रहे हैं. तो everyone aware. So now afterwards the notices can be the monthly, and why? Because whatever notices we had suffered that on account of GSTR1 and 3B, मतलब आपने GSTR1 में लाइबिलिटी तो बुक कर दी बट 3B में पे की नहीं, बट ये नोटिसेस कब आई थी हमें एटमोस्ट आफ्टर 3 years और अभी just they had started with that notices. But now section 7512 had changed. And what is the change? Section 7512 had changed and inserted an explanation so that it says that for the purpose of this subsection, the expression self-assessment tax shall include the payable in respect of outward supply furnished in 37, but not included in the return of the 39. That means आपने GSTR1 में, मतलब आपने जब अपना GSTR1 भरा तब आपने तो GSTR1 में वो टैक्स डिक्लेयर कर दिया, बट आपने GSTR3B फाइल नहीं किया, तो ये केस में दैट टैक्स वुड बी रिकवर्ड एज ए सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स. तो इसका कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस क्या होगा? कौन सा टैक्स? इफ यू हैड डिक्लेयर्ड इन द GSTR1 और आपने 3B में पे नहीं किया, तो पहले क्या होता था? व्हाट इज द पोजीशन बिफोर 1 January? विल सी फर्स्ट. तो पहले अगर आपने GSTR1 में डिस्क्लोज नहीं किया और GSTR3B में अगर आपने पे GSTR1 में आपने डिस्क्लोज किया बट GSTR3B में आपने पे नहीं किया, तो बिफोर 1 January 2021 they have to issue the ASMT 10. तो वो ASMT 10 इशू कर देते थे. आपको रिप्लाई देना था ASMT 11, दैट इज डिस्क्रिपेंसी में व्हाई देयर इज अ डिस्क्रिपेंसी, यू हैव टू रिप्लाई इन द ASMT 11. अगर दे आर सेटिस्फाइड विद द रिप्लाई देन ASMT 12 इशू करके केस क्लोज हो जाता था, एल्स दे हैव टू इशू द शो कॉज नोटिस. देन व्हाट इज द चेंज बिकॉज ऑफ दिस अमेंडमेंट? तो फ्रेंड्स क्या चेंज हुआ है? नाउ दिस कैन बी रिकवर्ड एज ए सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स. दैट मीन्स now they can have a power even to attach the bank account in the next month itself if you are having a difference of GSTR1 3B, and they start the recovery directly instead of issuing the show cause notice. So they can start the recovery. There is no need to issue the show cause notice, and this much is the consequences. And these consequences now whether applicable to January month. Anyone? What is the consequences I had seen? That they can recover in that month only in the as a self assessment tax. So recovery can be started even without issuance of the show cause notice. So what is the impact of this? And this impact can be for the January month. Let's say आपने अगर October, November, December और last 6 month के या 6 month में, I can't say the 6 month क्योंकि 6 month के अगर नहीं फाइल किए तो वैसे भी cancellation प्रोसीड होता था. बट लेट्स से लास्ट 2 month के, लेट्स से नवंबर एंड दिसंबर का आपने रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया है, तो जनवरी मंथ से ये प्रोविजन एप्लीकेबल होगी क्या? एनीवन? या वेदर इट्स एप्लीकेबल फॉर द जनवरी मंथ रिटर्न? तो फ्रेंड्स फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आज दोपहर का ही कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस था. टुडे इटसेल्फ वी हैड सीन दैट the authorities had issued the notice for the month of the October and December. तो वो क्लाइंट हमारे पास सुबह आया था कि अक्टूबर एंड दिसंबर का रिटर्न फाइल नहीं किया है, उसके लिए उसका रिकवरी प्रोसीडिंग उन्होंने चालू कर दिया है. So they had not issued even the ASMT them. They had just issued a one letter and say that this is the difference of GSTR1 3B. You had filed the GSTR1 but you had not filed the GSTR3B, and the recovery could be initiated. Second, even in the month of January itself, they had visited the premises. Now, whether visiting the premises without any notice is valid, so definitely not. They are not having the power. If you are not filing the GSTR3B, they can recover, but they are not having a power to visit unless and until they had served the notice. But they had visited that premises also one day before to recover that tax. So definitely they are following certain wrong procedure as far as this concern. But whenever you are filing the GSTR1, ensure that the GSTR3B has to be filed, or second, there should not be difference in the GSTR1 and GSTR3B. So one example I can take for this. Let's say in the month of the while filing of the January month return, you had a liability of the 10 lakh rupees. ठीक है, आपका जो भी एक ही बिल था और उसका GST 10 लाख था, बट 10 लाख के जगह पे इनएडवर्टेंटली आपने एक जीरो ज्यादा कर दिया और वो 10 लाख के जगह पे हो गया 1 करोड़. So now in the GSTR1, there is a liability disclosed as 1 crore, but while filing of the GSTR3B, you had filed the GSTR3B with the 10 lakh. So whether this error is going to, whether this error can be corrected, first of all, yes, you can correct the error, but this error can be corrected in the next month. And अगर आप next month की 11th को correct कर रहे हैं और आपने ये month का 3B अगर let's say 1 crore के जगह पे 10 lakh के फाइल किया तो system generated notice itself for the recovery of the balance tax could come. So this much is the impact of this provision. So definitely while filing of the GSTR1, be careful, file your GSTR1 correctly, else the litigation without any reason can be there and you have to suffer from the litigation. So this much is the consequences of inadvertent error in the GSTR1. मतलब क्या हुआ है 1 जनवरी 2020 से आप कंसल्टेंट नहीं, आप गॉड है ऐसे बोल सकते हैं, आपसे गलती हो ही नहीं सकती. अगर आपसे गलती हुई तो दे हैव टू सफर फॉर दैट मिस्टेक. सेकंड, GSTR1 में आपने दिखाई और देयर कुड बी द रिकवरी आल्सो इंक्लूडिंग द प्रोविजनल अटैचमेंट ऑफ द प्रॉपर्टी. एंड if you have to litigate this position, yes, definitely we can litigate this position because it lead to the violation of the article 19(1)(g). क्योंकि अगर ये स्टेज के अगर consequences हो रहे हैं only because of non filing of the GSTR3B of 1 month, then let's say that if मेरा अगर दिसंबर में मेरे पास अगर कैश बैलेंस नहीं है या बैंक बैलेंस नहीं है और आई एम फाइलिंग दैट इन द मंथ ऑफ द मे, लेट्स से 5-6 महीने के बाद मैं फाइल कर देती हूँ 3B. So I am a genuine taxpayer. I had disclosed in the GSTR1 whatever the liability is while filing of the GSTR3B delayedly. I say let's say after 4-5 months, I am paying the interest and even I am not paying the interest, you can recover afterwards. क्योंकि मैंने GSTR1 फाइल किया, GSTR3B, so I am a genuine assessee. If you are not tracking the non-genuine assessee, मतलब जो फाइल ही नहीं करते उनको आप ट्रैक नहीं करते, तो genuine assessee को इतना ज्यादा restrict नहीं कर पाएंगे. अगर interest, there are provision of interest, late fee, penalty under the GST law, then why there is such a severe consequences of error, or one can say non-filing of the GSTR3B only for the 1 month, or even now it's that will lead to the cancellation of the GST registration also. So I think this is again many of the taxpayers may go for the High Court for the purpose of in going forward we'll see that like provisional attachment. Next change is section 83. So with respect to provisional attachment also, many of the cases are in favor of the taxpayer in the earlier, but that section 83 also amended in the budget, and now it is the change is implemented from the 1st January 2021. And what is the change in the provisional attachment? So friends, even many of the taxpayer has suffered from the provisional attachment of the bank account. So if VAT regime तो हमने देखा ही है, but even in GST regime they are attaching the bank any valid reason. So now this power has increased. So this power first अगर आप earlier section 83(1) देखोगे तो provisional attachment दो थी, वो 5 section अगर you violate or notice is under pending under the 5 section, then only provisional attachment were there. मतलब कौन से सेक्शन थे वो 62, सेक्शन 63, 64, 67, 73 एंड 74. ये 6 सेक्शन में अगर आपका प्रोसीडिंग कोई पेंडिंग है, then only they have a power for the provisional attachment earlier, that is meant before 1st January 2022. But after 1st January 2022, this power has increased widely, and now if the proceedings are pending under chapter 12, chapter 14 and chapter 15, then they can if the commissioner is of the opinion to protect the interest of the government, they can attach to any property including the bank account. So the 6th section has converted into the chapters. So what are the impact of this? First of all, we'll see कि कौन से सेक्शन पहले कवर थे और कौन से एडिशनल सेक्शन अभी कवर हो रहे हैं. जैसे कहा कि सेक्शन 62, सेक्शन 63, 64, 70, 73. अभी आपको जो ASMT 10 इशू होता है, मतलब GSTR1 3P में जो डिफरेंस है, आपने जैसे GSTR1 में भरा है, नहीं तो GSTR, पहले तो GSTR ASMT 10 आपको जो ITC के लिए आए हुए हैं, मतलब जो GSTR1 3P डिफरेंस विल सी, they can issue the ASMT 10, but बहुत जन ASMT 10 they had received for the ITC reference, that means for the GSTR 3B में जो ITC लिया है और 2B में रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं हो रहा है, but these notices are issued under section 61, which is the scrutiny of returns, and whether the GSTR 2B is a return or 2A is a return or not, this is itself is a question. So whatever the notices they had issued under section 61, itself one can say not a valid notice, but let's say earlier जो भी आपके notices होते थे return review के, that was under section 61 and that is not covered for the provisional attachment of the bank account. But now additional section like section 59, section 60, section 61, section 68, 69, 70. So if proceedings are pending under this section also, then they can attach the bank account. So if court decision earlier also, that is before the amendment itself, if we see apex court decision, Radhakrishna Industry, the Radhakrishna Industry, they had said that the whatever the provision with respect to attachment of the bank account, as whatever the authorities following, what is the whatever the procedure following in case of bank attachment, that is a draconian in nature. So pehle nature. Now this amendment widen their power and one can definitely again has to challenge it in the High Court, whatever the power. So in the Radhakrishna Industries, they had said, even there are many favorable decision as far as provisional bank attachment is concerned, like say SPPN business of this is again a writ petition, even fine examine. So there are numerous judgments which is in favor of taxpayer with respect to provisional bank attachment. But definitely this will lead to litigation as this has more power with the authorities that they can attach the bank account. Now friends, what is the consequences of this? So definitely we are having a apex court decision which says that it is a draconian in nature. Secondly, there is an SOP or the provisional guidelines are issued for the authorities or the department for the earlier how and why they, on the basis of this apex court decision, how they can attach the bank account. But first of all, after this amendment also, if we intend to litigate, in our view, the bank account, attachment of the bank account should be the last recourse. मतलब आप जो भी tangible property है वो first attach, you should have to attach the first tangible property because that will not affect to run the business. But bank account is a working capital and that will affect to run the business. Even if we the section, it says that any property including bank account. So first of all, the authorities should go for the, or as per the provision, they should have a power first to attach the, even there are many apex court decision wherein it is says that the if they intend to recover the money, that should be from the tangible or attachment of the tangible asset, and then only the bank account should be the last recourse while attaching. Second, the risk, if we see this section, whatever wording we have seen, whether you can say that the whether CA and consultant bank account can be attached. तो आपको लगता है क्या कि आपका बैंक अटैच मतलब क्लाइंट का नॉन कंप्लायंट है तो आपका बैंक अकाउंट अटैच हो सकता है क्या फॉर द पर्पज ऑफ रिकवरी? as a consultant. So Rahulji is saying no. Aniruddha ji is saying no. So everyone of the view of the no, but friends, there is a risk that the consultant or CS bank account can be attached. And why? Because if you see the revised wording, it says that the any property including the bank account belonging to taxable person or any person specified in subsection 1 of section 122. And so subsection 122 says that the any person will include the person who has a benefit from that transaction. That means if there is a proceeding pending under any of the section of this, whatever we had discussed, the proceedings of assessment of non-filer, assessment of, and if the authorities of the view that the CA or consultant had took some benefit from that transaction, then they can have a power to attach the bank account of that person. So the word is any person, and that has a huge impact. Earlier, what happened? The person who is responsible was only the person whose bank account can be attached. But now not the case. If any person, if the authorities found that any person who has have a benefit from that transaction, so again, you are recovering the fees for the consultancy, whether that can be said that the benefit of that transaction. So definitely not, that not is the benefit from the transaction, but whether the authorities can took the view, आपको पता है कि authorities could be view ले सकती है, but if they have, they can prove that he retains the benefit of such a transaction, or CA or consultant has retained the any benefit of such a transaction, then there is a risk to attach the bank account or the property. I am not saying the bank account, I am saying practically from the whatever the section, whether we can litigate, definitely we can litigate, but whatever the practical consequences of this section, that is very huge, and we should be carefully read that provision and implement that, whatever the implication, we should be in the mind whatever the implication of that. तो implication हो सकते हैं, हम litigate तो definitely करेंगे, क्योंकि first of all bank attachment itself is not the first course of the action, it should be the last course of action. So any person, even of the taxpayer bank account, should not be the first course of action. But whatever the practicability, whatever we had seen from the department, whatever the action they are taking nowadays, from that point, the consultant also should take care of this provision. So I think we had discussed the challenges also. There are many queries in the question and answer and chat box. We'll see at the last, because now it's 7:47. There are many amendments which are required to be discussed. So we'll discuss the question answer session one to one. तो आप मुझसे discuss करेंगे तो मुझे और ज़्यादा अच्छा लगेगा. So we'll discuss one to one. Section 74 अमेंड हुआ है. हमने अभी तक कौन से अमेंडमेंट देखे? एक सप्लाई का देखा, आईटीसी भी सीन, उसके बाद हमने जीएसटीआर 3B, अगर आपका अगर देयर इज अ जीएसटीआर 3B देन इट इज ट्रीटेड एज अ सेल्फ असेसमेंट टैक्स. और फोर्थ अमेंडमेंट वी सीन दैट द प्रोविजनल बैंक अटैचमेंट का जो स्कोप है दैट इज नाउ वाइडर, एंड दैट कुड हैव एन मोर इम्पैक्ट ऑन द इवन ऑन द कंसल्टेंट. Next, section 74. अभी हम whatever the first section amendment that will be related to e-way bill. So we'll discuss that first section amendment at a one go. So you will have an overview of the amendment. So section 74 is related to e-way bill. And what is the change? First of all, whatever the section 74 5 it is said that if the proceedings under section 122, 125, 129 and 130, it's or penalties paid under this section, then the other are deemed to be concluded. मतलब क्या था? अगर section 73 और 74 proceeding के अगेंस्ट कौन सा भी penalty पे किया, तो section 122, 125, 129, 133 सेक्शन के अगेंस्ट, और ये इसके अगेंस्ट अगर कोई सेम ट्रांजैक्शन पे प्रोसीडिंग चल रहा है, तो इट इज डीम्ड टू बी कंक्लूडेड, मतलब ये भी कंक्लूड हुआ है ऐसा समझ जाएगा. बट नाउ the section 122 and 125 is deemed to be concluded, and section 129 130 will continue. मतलब section 129 130 उन्होंने delete कर दिया. So if there is a proceeding and you had paid the proceedings concluded under section 73 and 74, then the proceedings of section 122 and 125 deemed to be concluded, but the proceedings under section 129 and 130 will continue. Now, what is the section 129 and 130? So section 129 and 130 will be the detention. Section 129 and 130 is the detention during the transit of the goods. तो ये दोनों सेक्शन रिलेटेड टू ई-वे बिल है. तो अगर आपका प्रोसीडिंग सेक्शन 73-75 का कंक्लूड हुआ है तो भी ये proceedings of the section 129, 139, 130 will be continue. That will not said to be deemed to be concluded. And this is one of the major consequences as far as e-way bill non-compliance is concerned. तो ये major consequences है. Second section 129 भी अमेंड हुआ है एंड दैट इज आल्सो विद रिस्पेक्ट टू ई-वे बिल. तो ई-वे बिल का वन कॉन्सिक्वेंस हमने चेक किया, अगर उसके अगेंस्ट कोई प्रोसीडिंग है तो आपके प्रोसीडिंग कंक्लूड नहीं होंगे. स्पेसिफिकली यू हैव टू कंक्लूड, यू हैव टू रिप्लाई फॉर दैट ट्रांजैक्शन. सेकंड 129 अमेंड हुआ है. 129 अमेंड होके पेनल्टी ऑफ नॉन कंप्लायंस, मतलब आपके एरर अगर ई-वे बिल में कुछ हुआ है या आपने एक्सटेंड मतलब आपने वो एक्सटेंड नहीं किया, व्हीकल हैज कॉट मतलब व्हीकल डिटेन की और गुड्स आर डिटेन, देन द पेनल्टी इज इंक्रीज्ड टू 200%. पहले क्या था, पहले आप जब ई-वे बिल नॉन कंप्लायंस का कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस अगर ड्यूरिंग ट्रांजिट व्हीकल और गुड्स इफ दे डिटेन द गुड्स तो पेनल्टी कितना था, पेनल्टी टैक्स आपको 100% पे करना था और पेनल्टी 100 पे करना था. तो उसका एक ये भी होता था कि देयर इज अ डबल टैक्सेशन, क्योंकि आप सीबी में भी पे कर रहे हैं, आप टैक्स प्लस पेनल्टी पे कर रहे हैं यहाँ पे, तो टैक्स रिफंड मिलेगा, उसका आईटीसी होगा. और इवन देयर इज अ सर्टेन कंटेंशन दैट द you have to refund the tax because you can't doubly tax the one transaction. So because of that they had made the amendment and now 200% you have to pay 200% penalty. So let's say you are having a 10 lakh tax on the goods which are transited, मतलब आपका जो टैक्स अमाउंट है वो 10 लाख है सीजीएसटी एचजीएसटी, दैट मींस 5 लाख सीजीएसटी 5 लाख एचजीएसटी. और आपने क्या हुआ कि आपका ई-वे बिल एक्सपायर हो गया, डोंट नो, एंड यू हैव नॉट एक्सटेंडेड द वैलिडिटी एंड लेट्स से आपका व्हीकल और गुड्स डिटेन हुए, तो अनलेस एंड अंटिल यू पे 10 लाख प्लस 20%, दैट मींस 20 लाख you can't get the goods. So penalty is 200%. So there is a very huge consequences of even error in the e-way bill. So this is the one section 129 amendment. Accordingly, all the sections are amendment. Second, if we see the analysis of the amendment, so I am not discussing the legal provision, I am just discussing the analysis because there is a time, abhi half hour hi baki hai. So I am directly discussing the analysis of the amendment instead of reading the provision. So first we had seen the consequences that the penalty has increased to 200%. So penalty you are going to pay the 200%. Second, now they had provided the time frame. मतलब पहले टाइम फ्रेम नहीं था, बट नाउ दे हैड प्रोवाइडेड द टाइम फ्रेम. सो व्हेनेवर गुड्स आर गोइंग टू बी डिटेन्ड, नाउ दे रिक्वायर्ड टू इशू द शो कॉज नोटिस विद इन 7 days. सो ऑफिसर हैज टू इशू द शो कॉज नोटिस 7 days एंड आपको वो रिप्लाई करना है 7 days में, एल्स इन द 7 days ऑर्डर विल गेट पास्ड. मतलब आपने अगर 7 days में रिप्लाई नहीं दिया तो ऑर्डर विल गेट पास्ड विद इन द 7 days. दैट मींस आपको कितने डेज मिल रहे हैं, इफेक्टिवली 15 days मिल रहे हैं. मतलब शो कॉज नोटिस ऑथोरिटीज हैज टू इशू विद इन 7 days ऑफ द डिटेंशन. और उसके बाद जो भी एक वंस दे हैड इशू द शो कॉज नोटिस, यू हैव टू रिप्लाई विद इन 7 days, एल ऑर्डर विल गेट इशूड विद इन 7 days फॉर द एंड इफ यू डोंट रिप्लाई then the goods will get liable to be sold and disposed of after the order within 15 days. मतलब whatever the goods are liable to be sold and disposed of. Now definitely whatever we had discussed about the internal control system, you have to design the internal control system such that there should not be error in the e-way bill. But अगर error होती है, so there is a no genuine fraud, तो वो error, so there are I think this decision is of 12th, so this month decision only, 12th January decision regarding the Satyam Shivam papers, and this is must read decision. आपको अगर ये decision read करना है तो you can read this decision. Herein it is said that the provision of e-way bill, so definitely now also we can say that the अगर आपका लेट से व्हीकल डिटेन होता है कोई एरिया में जहाँ पे आपको कम्युनिकेशन भी नहीं है प्रॉपर, तो आप 7 days में कैसे रिप्लाई कर पाओगे, या आपको ये ही समझने में टाइम जाता है कि वहां पे हो क्या रहा है, तो हाउ यू कैन रिप्लाई टू इन द 7 days. So I think these are the provision, or whatever the time frame prescribed for the e-way bill litigation is very low, and it can be said that the draconian in nature. Recently, if we see the Supreme Court decision in the case of the Satyam Shivam Papers Limited, wherein there is an expiry of the validity of the e-way bill, the Supreme Court says that the additional cost of 59,000 should be, मतलब जो ऑफिसर का है, ऑफिसर को 69,000 whatever the tax involved has recovered from the officer because they had allegation, मतलब उन्होंने allegation put किए थे कि this involve the frauds, but as per Supreme Court it is said that if the tax is paid validly, if they had generated the tax invoice, even e-way bill, only the expiry of the validation of the e-way bill should not have a consequences, such a huge consequences. So definitely, if there is an error and there is no involvement of the fraud, etc., then you can litigate, but this will involve again litigation cost, and you have to avoid the litigation cost. Then internal control system or SOP will help in such a scenario. Second, as I said that if after order you had not discharged or you had not accepted or you had not filed the appeal, then within 15 days authorities can auction the goods. So they had a power to auction the goods within 15 days. Then and hence whatever the reply you have to submit, you should have to be hurry whenever there is a e-way bill related matter. Then transporter vehicle can also be detained. So even the transporter, as per revised provision, transporter vehicle can also be detained, and that can be only released on paying the penalty. मतलब जो भी पेनल्टी है और मैक्सिमम 1 लाख, तो ट्रांसपोर्टर को कितना पे करना है पेनल्टी, और मैक्सिमम 1 लाख, 1 lakh अंडर CGST, 1 lakh अंडर HST, दैट मींस वी कैन से मैक्सिमम अप टू 2 lakh कैन बी बेयर बाय द ट्रांसपोर्टर. So definitely this is again one of the major consequences or impact that industry may suffer in days to come because of this amendment. Again, section 30 is amended, which is related to the confiscation of the goods, and confiscation message notwithstanding anything content that has deleted. Why that is deleted? Because section 129 and 130 dealing. उसका meaning क्या है? That means now only if there is a fraud, section 130 will levy. मतलब section 130 के consequences कब आएंगे? अगर if there is a fraud. In other cases there is no any consequences of section 130, and section 130 is related to confiscation. मतलब your goods can be confiscation. What is the meaning of confiscation? That the title of the goods get transferred to the authorities immediately. So these consequences only in the case of the fraud and not other cases. So this provision is de-linked from the section 129. So section 129 and 130 both provisions are de-linked now, and now the section 130 does not have any overriding impact over the section 129. Second impact of the is under section 1707. Earlier क्या था? पहले 1 जनवरी 2022 मतलब you have to go. First of all, what we had seen, if you have to file appeal, you have to file appeal within 15 days of the order. But if you have to file the appeal, then 10% was the tax or pre-deposit, 10% of the tax liability. But now we have to pay that 25% of the penalty. So we have to pay sufficient amount while filing of the appeal with respect to e-way bill. So that 10% of the tax has increased now 25% of the penalty amount. So these are the changes with respect to e-way bill. Second changes are section 151, 152. These are the data related changes. Power to collect. Power to collect data has increased with respect to authorities. So ये power increase हुआ है, तो authority can collect the data. Section 151 revised. It says that the commissioner or an officer authorized by him by an order direct any person to furnish the information relating to any matter dealt in connection with within such a time, in such a frame, and in such a manner as specified. तो manner specify किया है, form specify किया है, and now they can collect the data from any source. Only whatever the data collected under section 151, they have, if they have to use, they have to give the opportunity to hurt. So this is only one of the favorable point I can say as far as amendment is concerned. Now these are the changes related to act. So we had seen the act related changes. First changes related to supply ITC, then GSTR1, GSTR3P difference will lead to self-assessment. Then we had seen that the provisional attachment of the bank. Then we had seen e-way bill related changes, and last, power to collect information. Now there are certain other changes other than law. And what are the changes? Works contract. So GST rate of certain works contract has increased. This is again has a much impact on the industry. Then GSTR1 can be blocked in certain scenario. That is also changed from the 1st January 2022. That we'll see. Then food tech company, that means restaurant के related जो GST liability वो change हुए हैं. Other authentication and some minor amendment we will see. So first of all, we'll start from the works contract. So what is the change in the works contract? If your client is in a works contract or dealing in the works contract, then check whether any change, or if you are giving the works contract, let's say construction, pure services, let's say security services to the governmental authority and government entity, then many of the exemption has removed. मतलब जो exempted थे पहले, but now 18% tax applicable है, और जो 12% में कवर थे उसको भी 18% में कवर किया है. So you have to refer the notification 15 and notification 16 for the change. So these are the two notification which definitely I'm not going to discuss entry by entry, but we'll give the overview which contract is covering, and we'll give the impact also. So first of all, what is meant by governmental authority and government entity? So friends, government entity is not direct government, like central government, state government. These are the government entity which is having some contribution or participation by way of equity or by way of control in the entity. That means 90% or more participation of the government in this entity. So like if we have to give the example, Kharde is the best example of government authority and government entity, we can say. Second, many railway related construction is by government authority or governmental entity. So if you are giving such a services to the government authority and government entity, there is a change in the rate. If we take the overview of the change, the certain construction contract which is related to historical movement, canal, dam, other irrigation work, उसके बाद pipeline है, structure meant for residential complex. These are the certain construction work which are earlier covered under the 12%. Now it is chargeable to 18% if provided to government entity or the government authority. Second, there are certain composite supply of the works contract. If you are earlier there under 5%, now from 1st January 2022, it is under 18%, where there is a earthwork consisting of more than 75% value of the works contract given to the government authority and government entity. Second, pure services like security services, if you are giving to the government company, then or one can say government entity, now earlier that is 0%, that is means nil rated or exempted, now it is 18%. So there is a vast change in these services if they related, even if you are paying under RCM related to check this entry related to pure services. So many of the industries is going to impact because of whoever giving the services to the government authority and government entity. So first question, what is the rate applicable? मतलब क्या हो जाता कि works contract जो है, that works contract or construction contract, let's say pure services, security services, so you can track the easily. But works contract है वो continuous service होती है, so it's a long term contract, and certain parts may get construction get completed in the before 1st January 2022, and on or after some part will be after 1st January 2020. So what is the rate applicable? This is the question. So in such a scenario, just section 13 is applicable. So I'm not going to discuss about the section 13, but we'll give the solution how you can track the rate. So first of all, you have to see the three incidents. First, date of invoice, date of supply, and date of payment. Any two dates, if before change, then old rate applicable, or any two dates is after change, then new rate applicable. मतलब लेट्स से आपका इनवॉइस इशू हुआ है 31 दिसंबर 2021 को और आपका सप्लाई भी हुआ है 31 दिसंबर 2021 को, बट पेमेंट हुआ है आफ्टरवर्ड्स. तो आपके दो इवेंट्स, ये तीन इवेंट में से दो इवेंट अगर आपके ओल्ड रिजिम में हुए हैं तो दैट मीन्स इज गेट कवर्ड अंडर द ओल्ड. तो फ्रेंड्स, यहाँ पे टैक्स प्लानिंग हो सकती है. चेक योर ट्रांजैक्शन, चेक वर्क्स कॉन्ट्रैक्टर. If it is possible, as per the agreement, raise the invoices as on the 31st December. So that will get covered under, if there is a supply of the service, and if invoice you will raising in the 31st December itself, then that will get covered under the old rate. Let's say even there is a construction completion in the 31st December, but you are raising the invoices the new rate, then new rate get increase the rate get applicable. So why we are saying there is a lot of impact on this industry? Because whatever government contract or whatever the tender we had seen many times that are inclusive of the taxes. So if earlier you are covered under the 5% or earlier you are covered under the 12% or earlier you are exempted, then drastic shifting into the 18% and that 18% cost you require to bear in the profit portion. And this is the major consequences as far as work industry concerned, and hence communication with the government is very essential in such a cases that the taxes should be separately recovered. Second, I think this industry should represent to the authorities. If they have to change the rate, there is no problem. They can change the rate. But at least for the ongoing construction contract, they have to provide certain transitional provision. Like when construction related change or developer related change was there in 2019, the ongoing को दोनों ऑप्शन अवेलेबल थे कि आप ओल्ड रेट पे भी जा सकते हैं, न्यू रेट पे भी जा सकते हैं. Certain kind of transitional provision should be provided, but at present that is not there, and hence if any industry is impacting more, or I think these industries are more impacting because of this change, representation only one of the solution at this present. Some tax planning is possible, but that is some sort of the, and if you can represent to the government authority that the contract should be revisited and it should be, or the GST should be collected separately. Else working capital impact will be the huge is for such a industries. So these are the change related to works contract. Third change is food tech company liable to pay GST. Now friends, what is food tech company? That means restaurant. Section 9(5) has introduced and added the e-commerce operator. So again, I am taking the analysis of this instead of reading the amendment. Only anyone intend to read the amendment, read the notification 17/2021. So with this notification, what happened? Restaurant अगर e-commerce platform through sale कर रहे हैं, मतलब अगर आप स्विगी एंड जोमेटो ले लो, अगर restaurant selling the services or restaurant services are provided through e-commerce platform, then e-commerce platform are liable to pay the GST and not the restaurant. That means restaurant not required to collect the GST from 1st January 2022 from the customer. Instead of Zomato or Swiggy, like Zomato or Swiggy, whoever e-commerce operator will collect the GST and will pay directly to the government. Now, from this, again, the specified premises are excluded. Matlab, what is the specified premises? Specified premises means the premises providing the hotel accommodation and declared tariff is above 7,500. So if from such a, then that restaurant is liable to pay and not the Zomato and Swiggy. So in the case of restaurant sector, I think such a complications are made because of this amendment. Already this industry is one of the complicated industry from tax perspective concerned, but it now again complicated because if you are selling through specified premises, then restaurant is liable to pay the GST. if you are selling this or you are giving the restaurant services in your premises, मतलब आप वहां पे खाना दे रहे हैं आपके premises में, again restaurant will be liable to pay. Only the sale of restaurant services sale through the Zomato and Swiggy, then the Zomato, even restaurant is not liable to collect from the customer. Zomato to customer and pay it to the government from 1st January. Again, they had issued one circular, and as per this circular, the e-commerce operator has to furnish. तो सेक्शन 9(5) अर्लियर भी था, तो जो भी ट्रांजैक्शन ऐसे है कि जहाँ पे ई कॉमर्स, तो बहुत सारे ट्रांजैक्शन में ई कॉमर्स लायबल टू पे द टैक्स. सो ई कॉमर्स जैसे वो ट्रांजैक्शन डिस्क्लोज करते हैं, वैसे सेम रेस्टोरेंट का ट्रांजैक्शन भी उनको डिस्क्लोज करना है टेबल 7A में GSTR1 में, एंड टेबल 4A में GSTR1 में, एंड टेबल 7(1)A. बट व्हाट अबाउट द रेस्टोरेंट? तो रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज में फॉर द टाइम बीइंग इन दिस सर्कुलर इट इज क्लैरिफाइड दैट द रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज शुड डिस्क्लोज इट एज एन एक्सेप्टेड सर्विसेज. मतलब आपको टेबल 3.1C में और टेबल 3B में डिस्क्लोज करना, टेबल 8 में मतलब जहां पे एग्जम्प्टेड और नीड रेटेड का कॉलम डिस्क्लोज होता है, वहां पे आपको रेस्टोरेंट सर्विसेज अगर आपने थ्रू जोमेटो और स्विगी दिया है तो वहां पे डिस्क्लोज करना है. Abhi, these columns are related to exempt, and this is not at all the exempt. The levy is there, only the collection and payment is shifted to the Swiggy and Zomato. So levy is on restaurant services, it's a restaurant only. Only the collection and payment is shifted to the e-commerce operator. Now friends, if you are disclosing in the exempted services, litigation could be there whether ITC, definitely ITC is not available to the restaurant, so this not there. But you are providing both the services, let's say renting hotel, जहाँ पे आप proportionate ITC ले रहे हो, तो exempted का ratio, ये सब litigation होने वाले हैं. So there are many complications as far as the hotel industry is concerned. Second complication, if we discuss goods and services, so restaurant services related to if provided through the Zomato and Swiggy, then Zomato and Swiggy is liable. But what about the goods? For example, I am selling the biscuits and someone is I'm a restaurant and selling the services, my services as well as मतलब जो भी goods prepared और जो भी services restaurant services, that also. And even I'm having certain goods like one can say ice cream, I'm selling biscuits, and that is through Zomato platform. So in our view, the services only covered is with respect to goods, matlab whatever qualifies the goods, that will be restaurant is liable for the payment of the tax. So you have to, whenever there is a sale through Zomato and Swiggy, you have to be careful, more careful about mentioning the SAC code, HSN code while giving the services. So if my own app I am using, so I am a outdoor cat or I am a cloud kitchen, having a cloud kitchen, and I am providing my own app for the booking, or let's say McDonald's is providing their own services for the delivery, then in such a case again restaurant is liable only if there is a third party involved or e-commerce operator involved, then only they are liable to pay the GST. So these are the certain challenges as far as restaurant concerned. Second, passenger transport service. Again, the change is that the e-commerce operator, matlab Ola, Uber is liable to pay the GST in case of the passenger transport. Only passenger transport services. The other services also. I'm just saying about the passenger transport service. For example, अगर आप रिक्शा से आप अगर खुद रिक्शा में जाके जा रहे हैं without Ola and Uber, then you don't require to pay the GST because traveling by the rickshaw or passenger transport by the rickshaw is exempted. But if it is through Ola and Uber, then you have to pay the 18% GST to Ola and Uber, and the Ola and Uber will pay to the government. Now, because of this, from 1st January 2021, if anyone experience, or even though आप अभी भी ओला में देख सकते हैं कि रिक्शा के रेट जो है वो ड्रास्टिकली इंक्रीज हुए हैं, तो दिस इज द impact. अगर let's say ओला और उबेर से बुक कर रहे हैं तो it has increased drastically because of levy of 18%. वही रिक्शा आप अगर विदाउट ओला उबेर आप बुक करते हो तो GST is not levied. So this is the impact. Same like restaurant industry, they will collect from the customer and they will pay even though unregistered, there is no tracking required whether the supplier who is providing the services is unregistered. मतलब उसका income 10 लाख, जैसे रेस्टोरेंट का इनकम अगर 20 लाख के अंदर है तो भी आप अगर जोमेटो और स्विगी से प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं तो जोमेटो और स्विगी विल कलेक्ट द जीएसटी एंड विल पे टू द गवर्नमेंट. नाउ GSTR1 गेट ब्लॉक्ड इन द सर्टेन सिनेरियो. तो पहले आपको पता था कि 1 जनवरी 2022 से पहले अगर आप 2 महीने के 3B फाइल नहीं करोगे तो आपको तो GSTR1 आप नेक्स्ट मंथ का फाइल नहीं कर सकते थे. बट नाउ if you had not filed the GSTR 3B of this month, then in the next month itself you can't file the GSTR1. मतलब 1 महीना ही है अभी. अगर आप जनवरी लेट से जनवरी मंथ का आप GSTR1 फाइल कर देते बट 3B फाइल नहीं करते हैं तो आप फरवरी मंथ का GSTR1 फाइल नहीं कर सकते. दिस इज द अमेंडमेंट. So definitely again there are certain challenges. You have to suffer from the cancellation, penal consequences and all the other. Second, Aadhaar authentication. Now, Aadhaar authentication is compulsory in the case of registration as well as refund application. If it is not Aadhaar authenticated, then it is possible that your refund will get blocked. So that's why please see whether Aadhaar is authenticated. If you are not having an Aadhaar number, then 1st जनवरी 22 से आधार ऑथेंटिकेशन कंपलसरी है. अगर वो हुआ नहीं है तो आपको आधार नंबर नहीं है तो आपको बैंक पासबुक विद फोटोग्राफ, वोटर आइडेंटिटी, पासपोर्ट एंड ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस कौन से भी डॉक्यूमेंट डिपार्टमेंट को सबमिट करते हैं. एंड जब भी आधार आपको अलोकेट हो जाएगा आधार नंबर, देन यू कैन link that other code authentication. So for the purpose of refund also now Aadhaar authentication is compulsory from 1st January. So these are the key amendments. There are certain. First major amendment that could have an impact is related to HSN. HSN system has changed from the. तो आप अगर HSN use कर रहे हैं तो पहले revisit करो whether that HSN had undergone a change from 1st January. और क्यों change हुए हैं? Because वर्ल्ड कस्टम ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ने उनके HSN चेंज किए हैं फ्रॉम 1st January 22 and that is brought adopted by the India because India is one of the member of the WTO and India has to adopt the revised system of the HSN. तो आपका अगर HSN है और आपके हर एक प्रोडक्ट का HSN चेंज हुआ है या नहीं, that from the first HSN are available on the custom portal also, even on the GST portal. So check whether HSN had changed or any change in HSN from the 1st January 22. इवन ऐसे भी हुआ है कुछ सिनारियों में हमने देखा है कि पहले हमने मिसलेनियस में कवर किए गए थे प्रोडक्ट, बट नाउ इट इज स्पेसिफिकली कवरिंग अंडर द रिवाइज्ड HSN system. So it is recommended if you had not changed, please check the HSN whether any there is revision in the HSN. Then everyone aware about the extension of 99C. It is 28th February and it is recommended that file before 28th February 2022 because this is giving the time. So extension is not for us. I will say the extension is for this government because wherever there is a extension of 99C, it will lead to increase in whatever the limitation period of 5 years or 3 years will start from the filing of the GSTR 999C. And hence it giving an extension to the government also for issuing of the notices. Then footwear sale, तो footwear industry में impact हुआ है. पहले कैसे था, 1000 के अंदर आपका है तो you are liable to pay the 5%, but now irrespective of the sale value of the footwear 12% is applicable. टेक्सटाइल में एक इंट्रो टेक्सटाइल के भी रेट इंक्रीज करने का सोचा था, बट आई थिंक टेक्सटाइल हैजंट मेड मोर रिप्रेजेंटेशन एंड बिकॉज ऑफ this change is deferred and now whatever the old rate that is applicable to the textile industry and this change is now decision of change deferred one day before. So 31st December को press release issue हुआ and textile change has change in the rate of in the industry of textile has deferred. So friends, we are definitely going to discuss one by one whatever the questions. We are having a 15 minutes to discuss the questions, but before that, if as a way forward for this session, definitely there are many challenges from the 1st January 22. Even as a consultant, even as a taxpayer, we are having a challenges. But what is the solution of these all challenges? So we had discussed about the internal control SOP, but whatever the result of this, you have to file the correct return. If you are filing the correct return, then litigation can be avoided. So understanding the concept while filing of the return, review of the maker-checker concept in the return filing is very necessary as far as GST is concerned, because once you file the return, you can't amend or you can't revise that return, which is possible in earlier era. Second, whenever we had come across with some taxpayer, what they are saying that whether only because of the mistake, if I had paid all the taxes, only disclosure error will lead to this much interest. So definitely, friends, only disclosure error could lead to many consequences, including interest, penalty, late fee. So many consequences could be there, and hence whatever the net solution of all this is, the whatever you are filing, e-way bill, e-invoicing, let's say GST return, that should be correct. You should be updated with all amendments in the GST law time to time. If there is a no updation with the amendment and you have got to know after 2-3 years, that is a major consequences. Even after 2-3 months, I can say the consequences could be huge. And reconciliation is the second solution. Maintain the reconciliation. So whatever the risk you will at this position, and what is the impact you get the risk in this position. First of all, if you are able to track the risk at this position only, or by way of health check, let's say, or by way of review of the returns, etc., then at least we can have some certain way forward and we can save the penalty. So penalty consequences ranges from the 15% to 100%. In case of e-way bill, it is up to 200%. So by reviewing the data by way of health check, you can avoid these consequences, and you can have at least penalty related consequences can be avoided if there is any liability and you come forward and you pay by way of DR603, etc. So I think this is our today's session. If any query, if I am able to unmute, will able to unmute. So Deepali ji.
We have, I think, in the Q&A box, I have two queries. So, can I read out the first query?
Yes, you can read out. Anyone intend to speak with or ask the query, we can allow to speak them also.
Yeah.
So anyone
they can raise their hand.
So yes, friends. So you can raise the hand. We can discuss one to one also.
Yes.
So can I read the query?
So the first query in the Q&A box is, in view of the provision in the Constitution whereby incorporated or incorporated both cannot pay tax based on mutuality, how will this amendment work in the GST law? So I think this is related to the Section 7 amendment scope, which you have discussed.
I think Kharde ji has asked this, Lalwani ji has asked this query. So mutuality concept in our view अभी भी है, but again be tested in the court of law. मैंने जैसे कहा कि सर्विस टैक्स का जो इश्यू था वो 15 साल के बाद सॉल्व हुआ, तो और मोर 15 साल लगेंगे जीएसटी का इश्यू सॉल्व होने का. 15 नहीं, आई थिंक मोर years. So definitely we can litigate, but whether you intend to litigate or not, this is the question. I think okay. Second query.
Yeah, second query is if there is excess amount in GSTR 2B, then whether excess can be carried forward as unclaimed ITC to the subsequent tax period.
Excess credit means what? Which is not available to the company. Pratik ji has asked the query. So query is not more clear, but if we say that the excess credit means I am having an excess credit and not required to pay the tax, so definitely whatever the credit in the 2B, if that is a correct, that means that is our credit, then you can avail that much credit in that month and you can carry forward in the next month, and you can use that in the next month.
Yes, ma'am. The third query is, what if supplier issued invoice, payment made, goods, service received, payment made to supplier including GST. However, supplier not deposited to credit of government. Hence, notice received to pay tax else reverse ITC. So instead of catching defaulter, department is using section 116 to against clearing taxpayer instead of defaulter. So what is your suggestion if we decide to challenge department action?
So friends, जो भी अमेंडमेंट हुआ है, सतीश जी इज आस्किंग दिस क्वेश्चन, मुंदरा जी, जो भी अमेंडमेंट हुआ है, एक पहले तो लॉ में ये सेक्शन ही नहीं था 1 जनवरी 2022 के पहले. तो डेफिनेटली व्हाट एवर द केसेस ऑफ द जीएसटीआर 1 3B सॉरी जीएसटीआर 2B एंड 3B में जो आईटीसी लिया है उसका डिफरेंसेस के, आई recommended to leave because there is no any procedure we are having to match that credit. Second, there is अगर आपने लॉ अभी अमेंड किया है तो पहले we can challenge it the constitutionally कि लॉ में ऐसे कुछ दिया ही नहीं था, so rule cannot override the law. So as thirdly, you are aware that so winning chances is more in such a cases, and you may aware about the amnesty scheme also. So I think you should it is strongly recommended to litigate these cases. Even every taxpayer is litigating. If amount is maximum, then litigation is possible.
Ma'am, we have another query. Okay. We have another query. Cooperative premises is liable to pay GST despite monthly maintenance is less than rupees to 7,500.
No, exemption of 7,500. Exemption of 7,500 will continue. That is continue. So okay. This is available. Exemption is available. Whatever earlier exemption of cooperative society related to 7,500, that is continue. So there is no change in any exemption.
Okay. So I think we are done with the Q&A box. If anyone has more query, please post it or raise your hands. We can wait. Okay, one more query. Can you elaborate for partnership?
अगर करना है तो आप अगर remuneration पे करते हो partnership firm का, तो we say that the remuneration will be payable as partners are the partners and partnership are the same entity and they are not providing the services. If I take that the view that they are providing the services to the partnership firm, then even on remuneration will be GST is applicable. So this could be the consequences. So at present, nobody is paying, but litigation could be there, and just highlighted the risk about that, because whatever worded as far as section 7 is concerned, that could cover the partnership firm and their partners.
Ma'am, the query which we discussed regarding cooperative premises, so is it applicable for commercial society as well?
Commercial society is also applicable. Even the commercial societies are paying earlier. What are the chances of this regarding partnership?
Yes, and the limit
are more
also. And the limit also applicable for partnership.
Huh?
They are asking the chances and the limit also for the partnership.
7,500. 7,500 limit is related to
20 lakhs or 40 lakhs.
Acha, limit to jo registration limit that is anywhere applicable. It's not over and above limit. If it costs 20 lakhs, then only it's applicable. Else not. So registration का जो basic limit है वो तो सबको ही applicable है. It's a partnership, else it is a other. Regarding whatever I had discussed, that is only the risk. No one is paying. And this is the strong case unless an authority, but आजकल authorities का interpretation we know that कि हमें कौन से भी notice आ रहे हैं, तो this is the utmost risk अगर interpretation चालू हुआ. For example, one of the interpretation what authorities took is that at presently कि आपके GSTR1 मतलब आपके अगर GSTR1 सितंबर के बाद फाइल किया हुआ है डेट के बाद, आपका ITC डिसअलाउ हुआ होगा. And even system is also restricting that ITC. तो उनका ही व्यू नहीं है, system भी वो ITC restrict करते हैं, but section 16 on our view, whatever the section 16 says, it says about the 3B. If you had filed and availed that in the 3B in the before the due date, because whatever the wording of the 16 section 16 is of recipient, and not of the supplier. तो मुझे लगता है कि वो कहीं तो जो है अभी जो authorities view ले रहे हैं that is incorrect definitely, but whatever interpretation we are seeing कुछ भी हो सकता है interpretation. So chance is there, minimal chances are there. So I had discussed this because I'm thinking that there are all the CS and no authorities is there. So we are not going to discuss outside this.
We have a raised hand.
So Rahul ji is saying yes, we have received such notices. Yes, there is now notices are ready. ऐसे notice बहुत है. और ये 10-15 साल तक ऐसे ही रहने वाला है कि there were notices and you have to reply the properly if you intend to litigate. First of all, check the power whether authorities. So many of the notices we had seen that there is no power at all to issue the notices, even that is issued. So before hurrying to reply that notices कि मेरा wrong है क्या गलत है, वो देखने से पहले भी जो notice है वो correct issue हुई है या वो correct है क्या नहीं वो देखो. Then reply accordingly. So don't take to hurry to take the legal contention. Legal contention can follow afterwards. So first check whether the notice is correct or not.
Okay. I think we have no more further queries, I think. So
okay. Anyone intend to interact? They can interact also.
Yeah, please unmute yourself and you can.
Yes, I think सबके अभी time हुआ है खाने का. I had tried my best to give all the changes. Definitely my health is not well, but I had tried my maximum level to share all the changes. So any understanding gap, you can connect with me at any time. So now, so first of all, thanks Deepali ji and thanks organizer to organize our session and giving us an opportunity to speak this with this session.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very kind of you to address us, even though you're not in the best of health. And it was such a wonderful session. We had very updated knowledge about the critical recent developments in the GST. And I think we have gained clarity and also the solutions that we could apply in our practice and there in the areas which we were lacking or we weren't aware of. So it was really a very useful session. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I hereby declare the session to be concluded. Thank you so much, all participants, to join us.
Thank you. Thanks to all participants. Feedback is essential for the speaker. So it's a thanks a lot for the feedbacks. Thanks a lot. So I will share PPT also with you, Deepali ji. So you can share with the participant. No, at all.
Okay.
You can share.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
Share. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.